Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Let me just I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Tidy the screen up like that. Go back to here, and let's have a bit of. Here we are. Yeah. Good morning. How are we doing, everyone? Hope you're all fit and well. Gary Muirhead was here at just after 1 o'clock this morning. Yeah. Apparently, he had what was the line from the Faceless song? Greasy insomnia all over me. Yeah, he was struggling with sleep last night, so he came and said hello. Morning to Gary, assuming he's still awake. It's Gary actually saying spooky. Well, kinda. Good morning, says Chris Ford. Good morning, comrades. May you never be troubled by an ice pick. Okay. Jim Turner says, good morning. Good morning to you as well. Mick Norton is here as well. Good morning, one and all. I'm sure I saw Mark Whiting go through that. There we are. Morning all. Dan Cullen's here as well. Kickoff has begun. Yeah, good morning. It is. Well, I've got something to show you in a minute. To reinforce what day today is. Andy Darvell says, "Ooh, scary." Probably not as scary as my face, actually, but yeah, there you are. That's the way we're going to start the show. If you've read the chat, you'll know I had the BBC reached out to me about a month ago to ask me to be on an interview about Didcot. It was before I went to the States, and they asked if I'd do it. I said I would. They went away to have a think about it. I went to America. I came back, and they've suddenly come back and said, "We'd like to do that." So hopefully that will be today. As far as I know, they don't know anything that we don't. As far as I know, it is literally just going to be, put something in the can. So when the announcement does happen, maybe they'll do something, or maybe, as I say, I'll find out this afternoon. But maybe what they'll do is actually have this ready. When the 10th anniversary rolls around, and they can basically point fingers at the Thames Valley Police and the Health and Safety Executive, much as I intend to do on Monday, by the way, and point out their shortcomings. So look out for that. Gary Muirhead, yes, it was touch and go for a little while, but we did make it all the way to Friday. I mean, the show's not over yet. Everything could go wrong yet. Andy Thornton is here. Andy, I'm going to the post office later today with your brand new hat and your deck of cards as well. Don't think you'll be playing Snap with them because they're a different set of cards, but there you are. Morning, you scary buggers. Yes, good morning to Andy Darville. As I say, I've got something to show you in a second. So I'll tell you what, without further ado, let me roll the intro and get this show on the road. And by the way, there is another giveaway today. It's the last for a while, but I went into the archives and I found another one. Yeah, another one. That really is the last. I promise you, that is the last. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get ahead of yourselves and you know what to do, but if not, I'll tell you more about it when we come back after a smidgen of. It is Friday, the 31st of October, and you know what that means.
Happy Halloween!
I spent ages doing that last night for 8 seconds. What a waste of bloody time. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, K-Tec lifts the lid on its latest scraper, the fundamentals of compaction with Volvo, fleet optimization made easy with Caterpillar technology, and CM Labs revisited. Plus, in today's edition of Mark's Morning Monologue. Now, I know it's a monologue. I know how monologues work. Mono, as in one. It's normally just me spewing. Today's subject is, I will deliver it, but I'm expecting a bit of chat afterwards because I don't believe what I'm going to say is entirely comprehensive. It's called a disincentive to work. It will make sense when we get there, but I'm thinking about all of those barriers that our society and our government have put in the way of people going about an honest day's work. Things like public transport being too expensive, things like having to pay to get a card that says you can do the job that you're doing, and there's loads of it, loads of it. That's going to be our subject for this the morning monologue. But before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of today's giveaway, which I can tell you is going to be for that. It is the last one. I had half a dozen of these, but that is literally the last one. It's a Komatsu hat, quite a nice one. Contracts on the side, bit of yellow trim under there. Yeah, you get the idea, and it's Komatsu, so of course it's good quality. If you'd like to win that, you know precisely what to do. You just need to go over to the chat and type the word Komatsu. While you're doing that, let me give you a minute to do so, because this is a minute to win it. We're going to start the countdown now.
T-minus 1 minute. T-minus 50 seconds. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
We've had 8 entries so far. Forgive my skinny friend down here. It's Halloween, what can I tell you? 8 entries so far. I'll do the draw in just a second, but the chat has gone absolutely mental this morning. So, Andy Dalvell saying, "Morning, morning, you scary buggers." Yes, good morning to you. Jim Turner, will my thing with the BBC be live or recorded? Record it yourself in case they clip to suit their own agenda. I will be recording it, but it is going to be a recording. This is not going to be live. So, yes, I will be taking precautions. Do not worry about that. Although, to be perfectly honest, whatever I say about Didcot, I'll stand by. It doesn't matter. And you know, if they want to try and take me out of context, I think I've got 9 3/4 years worth of backup to say my heart's in the right place, as it were. Dan Cullen saying I should have my 12. You ordered 12 hats from the USA this weekend. Whoop whoop, he says. Going back to the disincentive to work, we've had that for years. It's called the welfare system. Well, Jim, funnily enough, my starting point is that. Not, I don't actually believe the welfare system to be a bad thing. At its heart, you know, when applied correctly, the welfare system to prop up the needy and the vulnerable and stuff like that, I'm 100% behind it. I realize that it is exploited, but I'm going the other way. I'm going about the other exploitation, which we'll get to. Andy Thornton clearly swallowed a book of puns last night. Spooktacular Kohatsu. Yes. Kohatsu. Well done. Ken Hatcher has just arrived. Good morning, Ken. How's the weather where you are? My son is in Pisa, where it is chucking it down with rain at the moment, which is a bit of a blow, to be honest. Gary Muirhead, Didcot, what can we say about this disgraceful length of investigation that hasn't been said or before or discussed? Give the families the respect they deserve and give us the outcome, please. Yeah, 100%. 100%. See where they will be checking bank accounts when you're in the system. Don't know what that means. Don't know what that means. But anyway, it is time to do the prize draw. So let me put that up on the screen. There you are. Let me get rid of Boney there for a second. I'll probably replace him with something else in just a moment. Let's take him away. There we are. 1 in 8 chance, and the draw starts right now. Well, it seems only right and proper that the Hat Man himself has won one at long last. Dan Cullen, you've got 12 coming from the States. You've got one coming from me. Now, congratulations, Dan. Top work. That will be winging its way to you forthwith. I've got to go and buy a box for it, actually, but it'll be done today or tomorrow. I promise you that. What have we got here? Well done, Mr. Hats. Well done, Dan. Oh my God, says Dan. Yeah, how can you be surprised? How can you be surprised and shocked when you're going to get another hat? I I have visions of Dan's house. You open the front door and there's just a deluge of baseball caps just come pouring out. How many of them do you wear? I mean, do you rotate like I do? I mean, I'm wearing a green shirt today, so I went for the green hat. I tend to rotate, from one day to the next. Do you do that as well, or do you have sort of one or two favourites that you tend to wear all the time? Apparently, benefits Britain. Your bank account will be monitored by HMRC. Is that right? Is that right? Fair play, Dan says Jim. Okay, people, should we crack on? What have we got first? What have we got? Oh yeah, I've got new scrapers. No, we haven't. We're going to do the news first because there's something else I want to show you. But back after this. Yeah, let me close that. Let me go back to here. So, yeah, that looks about right. This is a piece of news today from the fine folks at the Construction Index. Good morning to Construction Index. Apparently, there has been a sharp rise in the critical distress in UK's construction firms. There has been a 70% leap in the number of construction companies in critical financial distress. Latest figures from Begbie's Trainers Red Flag Alert, which monitors the financial health of UK companies, shows that the number of construction companies in critical distress in the third quarter of 2025 reached 7,361. To put that in perspective, that's 70.2% higher than in the same period last year. Number of construction firms experiencing significant distress, a lower grade of woe apparently, was up 14.6% year on year to 103,551. It's tough out there, people. Across all industries in the UK, 726,594 businesses reported critical financial distress during the third quarter of 2025, a 15% annual increase. Not good, people. Not good at all. Back that up with yesterday's news about house building missing the planned target by at least a third. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough old winter of discontent or something. Every one I wear, I rotate. Depends on machines I'm in. Have a different one every day. Yeah, I used to do that, but I do find there are some that I particularly like. I mean, I have to say I'm quite fond of that one. Happy memories of Kentucky, but it's quite a nice fit. But there's a few. You can't see it from here, but there's a grey bobcat one that I that I wear from time to time, and I put it on. It's like, oh yeah, it's like coming home. That is. Dan Cover, thank you guys. No problem at all. Mick Norton says, "Is your Didcot meeting linked to a possible panorama feature?" Oh, the BBC doesn't really work like that in my experience. I got an email and then I got a phone call from a researcher saying we are going to be doing something. That's how they described it. We're going to be doing something on Didcot with the 10th anniversary fast approaching. Would you like to be involved? And obviously I said yes, because frankly, if I don't, nobody will. So I did that. As I say, I agreed to this maybe possibly even 5 or 6 weeks ago. They've now come back and they've said go. So what it is, whether it's a news story they have planned for the 10th anniversary, whether they're planning to do something in advance of the 10th anniversary, whether it's for a news show or panorama or something else, I've literally no idea. I hope to find out when I speak to them, which will hopefully be today. I'll keep you posted though. Andy Darvell says, did you say to wash hats in the dishwasher? Apparently so. I'm yet to try it, and I may try it with one that I don't particularly care about. I quite like all of them, but I may just try that just to. If I come back on the show one of these days and I'm just wearing a tiny little hat like a fascinator on the top of my head, you'll know that it doesn't work. Okay. Jim says, stop rotating the dam, you'll end up bald. Well, it comes to us all. Why are vampires so bad at art? They can only draw blood. Gary Muirhead, stick with the day job. Chris Full say, just going through the London Gazette to see who's bit the dust. The good news is the name I'm looking for isn't there. Yeah, I that used to be part of my job, going through the London Gazette back in the day. I mean, almost on a weekly basis, keeping an eye on what was going on in the construction industry. There's one that I'm waiting for. I've been tipped the wink that a company, a demolition company up in the northwest ish, has apparently bitten the big one, but I'm yet to get it confirmed. I've done a bit of digging around. As far as I know, they haven't actually officially gone, but it sounds like they are on their way out. I'll keep you posted on that. Andy Thornton says, you can only wash baseball caps in the dishwasher if the peak isn't card, but made of a plastic core. Oh, how would you know? How would you know? I mean, I wouldn't put Andy's one in the dishwasher anyway, because it's, well, partly because it belongs to Andy, but also because it's got suede on the front. I'm sure that would be absolutely, what is the word the kids say these days? Mullered? Yes, be absolutely destroyed. So I'm going to just find a really crappy one. And I've got some. I've got some really crappy ones here. I may just try one of those and see what sort of mess I can make of them. Who discovers these things, by the way? I'm fairly sure when I mentioned the fact that you can wash your baseball caps in a dishwasher, I also mentioned the fact that you can poach a salmon in one as well. Salmon's not cheap. I mean, I don't particularly like salmon, although I quite like poached salmon, I have to say. Who was it that took, 50, 60, 70 quid's worth of salmon and thought, I know, I'll bung it in the dishwasher, see how that pans out. Anywho, people, I promised you scrapers, and scrapers you shall jolly well have immediately after we've heard from the fine folks at Caterpillar. Thank you to Caterpillar for their sponsorship of this show. Now, K-Tec. K-Tec, I think we all know, are manufacturers of scrapers. Well, they've got a new one. They have. And they've given us a bit of a sneak preview. It's only a minute long, but it is a brand new scraper. I think we'd all kind of accepted that scrapers were a thing of the past. Apparently not. Apparently they're developing new ones. And they look like this.
The K-Tec 1230 pan has literally blown every expectation that I could have had.
Talk about companies going tits up, shall we say. Gary says, we've got a company called Petrofac here in Scotland who's just appointed an administrator. 2 years ago, they were worth 6 billion. This year, 20 million. Yeah, how can things go bad so quickly? Valuations are a weird thing anyway, but I do recall back in the day, me and a mate of mine used to do a bit of share trading. We're not talking about major investments. I mean, we're talking sort of 500 quid here or 500 quid there or whatever it might be. And some of the companies we used to watch were in the mining sector. And in the mining sector, they open up a new area of mine. And if they should discover gold, diamonds, copper, but whatever it might be, that valuation will just skyrocket. If they open up a new vein and there's sod all there, it will fall. But how you go from 6 billion to 20 million in 2 years, that's impressive. That is impressive. Can I say a very quick good morning to Mr. David Hearn over at Instagram, Digger Dave as he's known there. David, let me get your take. I said I wasn't going to mention this again, but I'm going to mention it right now, given that your background was with Hitachi. David Hearn, what do you make of the switch of name from Hitachi to Landcross? As a dyed in the wall Hitachi man back in the day, what do you make of that? Love to hear from you. Go back to the scrapers. Andy Darwell says, I'd love to have a go on one of those scrapers and tractors. So would I. Never driven a scraper at all. And Dan said, one of those would have been the bollocks for this job in Wisley. Yeah. Okay. Let's crack on, shall we? What have we got next? What have we got next? Oh, the fundamentals of compaction. Yeah, immediately after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Volvo is not the first name I generally think of when I think about compaction equipment, but maybe I should because they do things like this.
Hi, I'm Justin Zupank, Compaction Product Manager here at Volvo Construction Equipment, and I'm here today to talk to you about some compaction basics. And I have two examples of machines behind me that are different types of compactors. They're designed for different applications, different materials. To my right is one of our double drum asphalt compactors. This machine has 2 steel drums as well as a water system, and it's typically going to be used for rolling sub-bases. It's going to be rolled for asphalt, and the water is going to be there to make sure the material doesn't stick to the drum. On my left-hand side, we have one of our large soil compactors, which it's a little bit of a different design. You have a single drum in the front and tires in the rear. And the reason for that machine is it's going to be used on more rough terrains. It's going to be used for clays and soils and gravels, but you need to make sure that you have that traction when it's available. Compaction, what is it? Why are we talking about these machines in general? And really what they're trying to accomplish is the removal of air voids within the material they're running on. You're trying to compress the material down, and you're trying to create as dense of a subsurface as possible to provide a smooth finish that you can either use to build on for whatever your final application is. As we start talking about some items that might impact compaction, 2 of the big ones are going to be amplitude and frequency. And what are we looking at with amplitude? Well, that's going to be your vertical movement of the drum and really your impacts when that drum is actually rolling over the surface. And that's accomplished by a weight that is rotating within the drum. And you can adjust that on different machines. We have some models that are 2 amplitudes where you have a high setting and a low setting. The high setting is going to be used for your thicker materials, your thicker lifts, as well as your low setting being used for your thinner lifts and maybe some more sensitive surfaces. Now, if we look at the other machines that are 8 amplitudes, which is going to give us the broadest selection of amplitudes in the industry, you can adjust from 1 all the way up to 8, where now your first setting is going to be similar to your low in 2 amplitude machine, but you're going to be able to adjust in between as well. Now, if we talk about frequency is going to be more so the time or the distance between your impacts. So as we go forward, we try to set an ideal impacts per foot of 10 to 14 impacts per foot on the machines. And we actually have settings and functions on the machine where they will help the operator to limit their speed so they maintain in that ideal zone. If you're going too fast, now you're going to have too few impacts per foot. And if you're going too slow, you're going to have too many impacts per foot. The end result is going to be a subsurface that's not going to be ideal. It's not going to be as smooth as what's desired. Another factor that you might be looking at is whether you're using a machine in a static or a vibratory mode. Static means that you're just using the down pressure, the gravity of the machine to generate additional force on the mat, but you're not adding anything additional over the weight of the machine. If you're using a machine in the vibratory function, that means that you're adding additional pressure from some other mechanical function, and that could be from the drums where you have that offset weight that rotates within the drum. And those settings are adjustable. To go for the highest amplitude setting, those weights are going to be in alignment. And now for your lowest setting, you're going to push those weights apart, and that will generate a low amount of force on the mat. One of the newer developments in compaction is intelligent compaction. And what that is really the deployment of sensors and technologies such as GPS to make the operator more efficient and meet specific job requirements. And at Volvo, we have a system that we call Compact Assist, which is using those systems and those sensors to display the information to the operator. And you can provide functionality such as temperature mapping, pass mapping, density mapping, and now display that in real time to the operator, as well as provide data outputs. So now if you have a job that's requiring that data to be turned in, you can submit that as needed. At Volvo Construction Equipment, we design all of our machines to have great maintenance and make sure that we really keep the end user in mind. And our SD115 that's parked behind me is no exception with that. We have all of our ground level access points such as diesel fill, DEF fill, as well as your engine oil fill and your filters right from the ground level. And this machine, as I walk back, you can start with your diesel fill here, ground level on the right-hand side, and towards the rear of the machine, indicated by the blue cap, we have our DEF fill for our engine emission system. And for any of those units that are equipped with a cab, we have complete filtration, and the filter can be accessed from the ground level as well on the right-hand side of the machine. As we look at our easy-to-access service features on our soil compactors, we'll start with the entrance point for the cab or the operator station, where we have at ground level, we have a lockable compartment for our battery disconnect, which is going to turn on or off all the machine power. And then we also have a nice feature where it's going to be a power raise and lower for your engine compartment hood. And as we walk back to the engine compartment, all the major service features are going to be accessible from the ground level. If we start here on the left, we have hydraulic test ports. Right above that, you have your hydraulic filter, engine air filter, water fuel separator, and then you have your engine oil dipstick right at the side. When we're talking about asphalt rollers, one of the key features is the water system. And for this machine, we're very proud of the system itself, and we have multiple features that are going to enable you to have as much uptime as possible. One of which is the large water capacity tanks we have at the front and the rear. And we also have primary and secondary spray bars that are going to be located on each drum with a windscreen off to the side. The primary bar can be run, or if you would have a clog or any type of potential damage, now you can switch over to the secondary bar and make sure you continue running without having to stop and perform maintenance. Another key feature is going to be the triple filtration that we have on our water system. The first filtration point is going to be for the water fill on the tanks, and that's indicated by your blue lid on the front and the rear. And as you open the tank, you'll have a filter screen right in the front. Your second filtration point is going to be located with your pumps. Right at the ground level, you have your primary and secondary pumps, one for each spray bar, and each of those pumps has a filter screen on it as well that can be easily removed and cleaned if needed. And your third point is going to be on your water spray nozzles. And if you go back to the drum, each nozzle is going to have its own independent filter screen inside of it that can be removed without tools and easily cleaned as needed. One key feature of all of our compaction products is they're proudly manufactured here in the US. From our engineering teams all the way through the fabrication and the rolling of the drum shells, everything's done at our Shippensburg, Pennsylvania facility. And if there's any questions that you need about product or compaction in general, please reach out to your local Volvo Construction Equipment dealer and they'll be glad to help you.
That guy knows his onions, does he not? Speaking of onions, I do want to go back to this from Mick. Says, love the K-Tec concept. One hell of an advancement over my old roped onions 12 cubic yard box behind my Cat D8H. Going back to the chat again. Speaking of scrapers again, Jim Turner. I think we'd shy away from them, but America never forgot how to shift muck efficiently. Glad they're bouncing back over here. I've got a design for a small to medium scraper-based muck shift machine. Manufacturers of the world flock to Jim Turner's door. Gary Muirhead says, I wonder if Hitachi are expecting the dealers to foot the cost of the new name change. It's a good question. My guess is it's going to be a bit of a shared cost, but I don't know that. It is an interesting one. On the same subject, Dan says, I was speaking to a guy about this Hitachi malarkey. He reckons it's to do with China, and they have a reason and a method in their madness. I wonder what that could possibly be. Mick said this, the vital importance of a competent roller-up, often disregarded on many sites. Less so these days, I think, partly because of technology, but also because you are ultimately responsible for that road for a period, aren't you? So I would imagine that I think roller operators are given a little more respect. Is that the right word? You know what I mean? Gary Muirhead says, I heard your friend, Mr. Trump. Ah, yes. Me and the big orange twat. We are big buddies. Mr. Trump's meeting with China went well, with tariff charges to the US reducing from 20% to 10% today. Until he says something out of order tomorrow, or they say something out of order and he responds by doubling their it's a whole thing. It's a whole bollocks. It really is. Do you know, I've got to the point now where I as I say, I still watch a lot of US political coverage, and some of them play clips on YouTube and on Substack. They play clips of Donald Trump, and the moment he comes on, I have to mute him. I literally can no longer bear the sound of his voice. I've got it bad. We were talking technology just a moment ago. We're going to be doing that again. Twice, in fact. We're back in a moment with Caterpillar.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, Jim's just said about his small to medium scraper muck shift machine. Doesn't need to be moved by a lorry either. It's free to flip from job to job. Sounds like you've covered all the bases. Just wish somebody would pay attention. Do you ever speak to Gary Major at all, Jim? Might be an idea over on LinkedIn. He's well connected and he is a designer. Yeah, he is a designer. I don't even know what I was doing there. He is a designer. Have a word with him. Have you had any updates on new show sponsors yet? That close. To be perfectly honest with you, we've been working on some other bits and pieces. I'm doing this Gold Rush series, Demolition Gold Rush, which has been very kindly sponsored by the fine folks at C&D Consultants. I've also done a new, which will be published very soon, actually, a report on the state of the market, both the demolition market now and into 2026, which has been sponsored by Fenchurch Insurance, which I'm very, very pleased about. I've not worked with those guys before, although I have worked with one of their guys in the past. So yeah, very, very, yeah, you get the idea. What do you think on that question I posted on lifting? Did you? I'm not seeing a question from you, Dan. Not seeing a question. I mean, I've seen this one. When's your trip south, Gary? I don't know if he's confirmed that, but Gary, if you have confirmed it, please let us know. Anyway, while you're talking amongst yourselves, let's talk about fleet optimization. Hang on a minute. Digger David Hearn, ex of Hitachi, says the rebranding has come as a surprise for me too. I put tremendous effort into getting the Hitachi brand established from the early 80s. Good luck with the new name. Yeah. Do you know that's the bit that I find hardest to get my head around, is the fact that there was, bearing in mind, Hitachi were one of the early arrivals from Japan, and there would have been a huge amount of work put in from the point that they arrived early 80s until the present day. Initially convincing people that Japanese equipment was good, which it is, ultimately establishing themselves, particularly when David was there, particularly establishing themselves as the market leader in the excavator market. And I'm not saying that all that's been for nothing. Maybe that sets up Landcross for another surge, but it does feel like throwing the baby out with the bathwater to me, having put all that effort into getting the name to where it is today and then to start again. Seems odd. Gary says, nothing sorted yet, but we're working on it. I'll let you all know when it is. Good. Look forward to it. I've promised you Caterpillar. Optimizing your fleet. I remember back in the day when you used to have those operators' handbooks, the big thick buggers from Caterpillar, where you'd have to go through intricate details of what excavator matches with what dump truck, what size bucket makes it applicable, what size skip do you have on how many trucks do you need, all of that sort of stuff. It's come on a bit since then, like this.
Okay, let's say you're the GM of a site and business is booming. But your production, well, it isn't. Your crusher is being inadequately fed by a small fleet of 70-ton haul trucks, loaded by a Cat 990 wheel loader. So, you reach out to your local Cat dealer about upsizing your equipment to upsize your production. They quickly enter the scene and bring with them Cat Job Site Solutions. Together with you, they analyze the situation to determine the best possible solution for your site. What they find, though, is a bit of a surprise. Instead of upsizing your equipment, they find that you should probably downsize instead, with a smaller Cat 988 wheel loader matched up with lower payload Cat 773 trucks. Or an even better matched combo, using a Cat 988 loading a fleet of Cat 772 trucks. You decide to go with the recommended most downsized solution, but that requires greater efficiencies. So Cat Job Site Solutions and your Cat dealer step up with tools like fleet management to ensure maintenance and repairs are planned and completed on time to better manage your risk of downtime. With training for your operators to get the most out of every machine on every cycle. And productivity data to point out your areas of success and those needing a little improvement. With those services in place, that new smaller equipment combo has kept your crusher busy, achieving all of your production targets while reducing fuel costs and lowering maintenance and repair expenses. Now, just like your business, production is booming and your bottom line has never looked better. And that is a Cat Job Site Solution.
I think a company or a manufacturer is kind of customer facing when they actually recommend you buy a smaller machine. Yeah. Jim says, hate the voice and music on that cat vid. Feels like I'm watching some shit program called something like The World's Wackiest Animals. There's a fine line with American accents, isn't there? They can go from really, really enthusiastic. I must admit, I thought the guy on the Volvo video was very, very good indeed. Very chilled and laid back. Now, Dan has posted a couple of comments here, and I'm guessing these are probably related to the K-Tec video that we brought you earlier in the show. They haven't considered the various machines that don't have these points. And what about hitches snagging on chains? Dan, I can't answer that because I've not actually seen the machines themselves. All I would say is K-Tec are a global brand specializing in the production of scrapers. My gut tells me they have probably thought of that. There's no way that they're going into production with a machine that doesn't match as many couplers as they possibly can. Yeah. Gary says this rock that we're loading is so hard on the bucket teeth on our equipment. We're getting a new set every 1 to 2 weeks at the cost of $3,000 a set. Ouch! Is that granite? I'm not entirely sure whereabouts in Bonnie, Scotland. I know you've got some granite up there. There is that line of granite, isn't there? Runs from is it like Norway and Finland and into Scotland, and it is as hard as granite. I don't even know where that sentence was going. Granite is pretty hard. You know what granite looks like, what it sounds like, and what it feels like as well. We've got one final film, which is taking back to Kentucky. Not for the final time, but we're getting there. I'll be back after this. Now, before we get into this final film, I just want to give you a very quick heads up. Talking about Kentucky, I met a guy over in Kentucky who was driving the Menzie Muck on the Rock Zone stand. And he was such an interesting guy, and he works in such a crazy location that I've invited him to be on a podcast. Well, he's over in Colorado or thereabouts, so the time difference is absolutely terrible, and he works remotely most of the time. So we're actually recording a podcast on Sunday, be 4 o'clock my time here in the UK. It'll be 9 o'clock in the morning his time over in Colorado. We're going to be bringing that to you. I really hope it comes together as well as it should, because the guy's got an absolutely fascinating story. Fascinating story on how he got into the industry, and also a fascinating story about how he works, like the fact that he works up the side of a mountain and has to literally carry diesel by hand up to his machine. It's a crazy story. Hope it all pans out. Anyway, while we were in Louisville in Kentucky, we did a couple of videos with CM Labs, the simulator people. I brought you one earlier in the week. This is the second one. We had Devon on earlier in the week, and this is Lisa.
My name is Lisa. We're here at Utility Expo 2025 in Louisville, Kentucky. Lab started in construction, but we noticed that the skilled labor shortage really carried over into utilities. The industry isn't just looking for a workforce, they're looking for a skilled workforce. With simulators for training, you could put someone on a machine and then you can analyze them to see if they're ready for the actual piece of equipment. So you're even evaluating if it's going to be safe, ensuring that there's no wear and tear on your equipment. You can use our reporting system to get a very objective assessment as well. So it makes it very fair for everyone. They start in the same place, they're marked the same way, and you have a whole report that can tell you where they need more work. It's an engineering grade simulation. It's called Vortex Studio. And as a result, we build the training simulators on top of it. We take the engineering specs from the equipment. We have physics in earth. We have physics in cables. We put it all together. We work with subject matter experts to design the training exercises so that the exercises mimic what a person will experience in real life. We offer a range of hardware, and clients can choose how they want to experience that simulation, something from a small desktop to a 5-screen. We have the highest grade, highest fidelity simulations in the industry. A lot of the training schools like our products because we offer a complete range. So they can buy one simulator, have many different training packs, and depending on the courses that they offer, switch the simulation. To find out more, you can visit www.cm-labs.com.
Thanks for that, Lisa. Hughes Waste and Douglas Dobson over on Instagram. Good morning to you as well. I think Dan is trying to confuse me, and he succeeded. He was talking about hitches and lifting points and various other bits and pieces. It's actually a conversation that's taking place over on our WhatsApp group. There you are. There has been a safety bulletin about excavator lifting points. I'm just going to very quickly go through. If anyone wants this, it's in the WhatsApp group. But following recent advice from JCB, we've been reminded that the quick hitch must not be used as a lifting point under any circumstances. The hydraulic quick hitch is blanked off on all new excavators because it's not designed, tested, or approved for lifting. Using it could lead to equipment failure, dropped loads, or serious injury. The pins installed by JCB shall not be removed. That's over on the WhatsApp group, which is why I didn't know quite where it's coming from. I can only follow one conversation at a time, and I'm looking at this one right now. Anyway, go back to the rock that our friend Gary is living with. Kishorn Port Rock. You can actually see the sparks coming off them. Even the driller is saying he's going through a drill head every blast when it usually lasts 3 to 4 blasts. Man alive. Andy Darvell, the subject of granite. When I did that seed events work in Lyme Regis, we were crushing the old granite groins, replacing them with new ones. The sound coming from the crusher jaws sounded like metal on metal. It's a whole different thing. Really is. Mark, Dan and I are talking about the lifting eye on quick hitches not being a lifting eye. They haven't officially been a lifting eye for years. That's why they come with a bolt through. Okay, that's going back to that WhatsApp conversation. If you'd like to know what's going on there, just have a look on WhatsApp. It's just arse covering from the manufacturer. They all know we're going to remove the bolt and lift with the hitch. Just means the hitch doesn't have to pass lifting gear scrutiny. You old cynic, you. I mean, you're probably right, but yeah. Gary says, Jim, it's been a real grey area. You wonder why hitch manufacturers still fit them with lifting certification. I don't agree with using the tipping link as a lifting point, he says. Anyway, that's that. I'm sure that conversation will continue over on WhatsApp for the foreseeable future. But it is that time. It is the end of the main part of the show, or the main part. I'm just trying to get my head around what I'm about to say. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. I'll be back on Monday. But today's morning monologue, I'm looking for feedback. Not just because it looks good for my internet engagement levels, but because I think... I mean, I've done this cold. I mean, I've literally sat down and wrote this cold. But you guys live and breathe what I'm about to say. So I'd love to get your feedback on it. So I'll be back with the morning monologue immediately after this. In the UK, we often hear people saying there's no incentive to work. We have a welfare state that was created to look after the needy and the vulnerable, but that system is widely exploited by the lazy and the feckless, at least according to the Daily Mail. Whether or not that's true is open to debate. What is clear, however, is that we as a nation have knowingly and deliberately disincentivized work. Even the most honest and hardworking are expected to jump through hoops, circumvent countless barriers and obstacles, and even pay for the privilege of earning a crust. And here in the demolition and construction sector, that scenario plays out on a daily basis. In fact, it begins even before we can start work. First, you've got to get to the job. Public transport isn't cheap. Bus and train fares in the UK are among the highest in Europe. Drive instead, and you're stung by fuel duty, road tax, insurance premiums that seem to rise with every renewal. Then add in toll roads, congestion charges, and parking fees, and you've already spent a chunk of your week's pay before you've actually earned any money. And you've still got to keep the motor running, MOTs, tyres, servicing, maybe breakdown cover, all the little things to keep you legal and mobile. And God forbid your van gets nicked or broken into overnight, because replacing stolen tools and equipment will set you back thousands. Once you finally get there, the real fun begins. You've got to prove you're qualified to do the job you've been doing for years. That means cards and tickets, CSCS, CPCS, CCDO, an alphabet soup of plastic proof that must be earned, renewed, and refreshed. You might have spent decades in the trade, but if your car's out of date, you're not getting past the gate. And all of that costs. Some firms will pay, but plenty won't. You're expected to invest in yourself as if that's some sort of motivational slogan, even though all you're really doing is paying to stay employable. The same goes for health checks, drug and alcohol tests, and the endless site-specific inductions. You might not have to pay for them, but they often mean unpaid hours. Then there's PPE. The law now says employers should provide it, even for agency workers, but that's not always how it works out. Boots, gloves, high-vis, safety specs. If you want gear that fits properly and actually protects you, you'll often end up buying your own. Decent boots alone can set you back £100 or more. And God forbid you wear orange high-vis on a site that requires yellow, because apparently in some places you're completely invisible in day-glow orange with reflective strips. Then there's a daily grind, the cost of simply getting through the day. Lunch might not sound like a big expense, but when you're on the road or out on a remote site, it's often not easy to bring your own. We do that bit again. I want that to make sense. Lunch might not sound like a big expense, but when you're on the road or on a remote site, it's not. It's often not easy to bring your own. A sandwich, crisps, a drink, bar of chocolate maybe, will easily set you back a tenner. Do that 5 days a week, and you're looking at more than $2,000 a year just to keep you going. Coffee, snacks, bottled water, all relatively small costs, but they quietly pile up. What's the alternative? Site canteens these days are few and far between, and you can't exactly pop home for a cuppa when you're an hour's drive away. In 2025, a mobile phone isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. You need it for calls, text updates, timesheets, maps, job apps, digital inductions. Miss a call, miss a shift. Data plans aren't free, and neither is the phone itself, so you pay, because if you don't, you may slip off the employment radar. When payday finally rolls around, you might think the pain has stopped, but for many, that's when it really begins. Tax deductions, national insurance, pension contributions, umbrella company fees, each one sucking at your pay packet like a ravenous vampire. And if you're paid late, what happens far too and if you're paid late, which happens far too often, the domino effect kicks in. Overdraft fees, misdirect debits. Try explaining to your landlord or your bank that your wages should have been in by now. They don't care. The system doesn't wait. But the disincentive isn't just financial. There's the physical toll. Demolition and construction are punishing trades. Bad backs, worn knees, hearing loss, respiratory issues, all part of the deal. But there's no sick pay for most self-employed or agency workers. No one's paying you to rest. If you're not working, you're not earning. You work like a dog your entire life, often beyond the point when your body has had enough. And what are you left with? A pension that's worth sod all, and a savings pot that has been used to prop up the industry's late and non-payers for the past 20 years. From the time we're children, we're told, work hard, follow the rules, and you'll be rewarded. But that's not how it feels on the ground. Out here, it's less an incentive and more a tax on trying. Every qualification, every mile to site chips away at what little reward there is. Before a man or woman in this game even turns up, they've already paid out for the privilege of working. They've already spent money, time, and energy just to earn the right to earn. We're told that there are people in the UK exploiting the system, but compared to how the system exploits those working in demolition, we're told there are people in the UK exploiting the system, but compared to how the system exploits those working in demolition and construction, welfare scroungers are bloody amateurs. There you are. My final thought for the day. I will go over to the chat in just a moment, but here, I don't get this anymore. So this is going back a few years, but back in the day, I used to, as a freelancer, I'd send in an invoice, and at some point, nowhere near quickly enough, but at some point, a company that I'd worked for, be it a publisher or a company, would send me a check. And I would have to go check in hand to my nearest bank, which at the time was in Epsom. And in order for me to pay my check into the bank, I had to pay to park. So if I had a check for 100 quid, I was paying in 100 quid, but I was actually benefiting 97 or 96 quid. I was basically being taxed. I mean, already paying tax anyway, but I'm basically being taxed to pay my money into a bank. There you are. That was, I wouldn't say that was the inspiration, but I was just going through this in my head the other day, and I thought, it's about time we did something about that. Hang on a minute. Dan says, wow, Gary, he must be Burrow. I just had a conversation with a 68 68-year-old operator this morning on site. I don't know what that one's about. There's probably a conversation going on between those guys. Really, we should all have a small fly jib that fits the quick hitch. That way the chains will be away from anything that could get snagged on. Gary, on the same subject, if you're using a lifting eye on a hitch or tipping link, it should always be pointing straight down, not fouling the lifting equipment. That's what you've been told when on your lifting ops course, he says. The only problem with having the small fly jib, Jim, is that the lifting duties are calculated from the main bucket pin. And if your lifting point is farther away, then your lifting is reduced. Nothing to do with what the morning monologue was all about, but listen, it's all part of the conversation. I wonder if anyone's ever actually done the calculation of your day-to-day costs of working in this industry. You're factoring in road tax, fuel for your car, MOT, replacement tyres, wear and tear on your car, your cards, your PPE, your day-to-day sustenance. I wonder, if you're earning, let's say, 1,200 quid a week, how much are you actually left with, genuinely, if you really, really factor in all of your costs? Do you reckon you see clear of £1,000? I'm not so sure. And listen, I mean, I'm fairly sure there was a conversation going on. I think Nigel Williams was involved in it over on LinkedIn. And I know Nigel, because he's on a bit of a health kick at the moment, he's spending a lot of his time in the gym. I know he's doing quite a bit of, cooking and, getting his food ready for the weekend, and, basically, more healthy food and trying not to eat on the road and that sort of thing. And fair play to him. But does everyone have the time for that, I wonder? Dan says that's spending £275 a week to be on this job with travel and digs. There you are. 275 quid. That's basically, that's a tax on top of the tax to work. So if you want to clear £1,000 a week, let's say, because I'm working in round figures here, if you want to clear £1,000 a week, you've actually got to clear about 1,500 quid to allow for your tax and national insurance and your day-to-day costs. Yeah. Garvin, mostly diggers. Morning, Garvin says, I left Dublin when I realised 50% of my weekly wage was just covering the cost of work. 50%. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? When you have a look at like recruitment advertising, you can earn, I don't know, let's say you can earn 30 grand a year. Yes, you can. But if you're actually giving half of it away in accommodation, travel, car, foods, as Garvin has just said, you're actually earning 15 grand a year. That job suddenly looks a whole lot less appealing, right? 30 grand a year, yeah, not to be sniffed at. 40 would be better, 50 would be even better still. But 30 grand a year, depending where you're living and your circumstances, that seems fairly reasonable. 15 grand a year, I was earning 15 grand a year in a publishing job 30 years ago. Gary says, I've always said, if you've not put in the system, you shouldn't be able to take something out. You've worked all your days paid, you're due, and when you need some help from the system, you're told no. Yeah. And as I say, I mean, I know there are, but unfortunately, that's the nature of modern life, the nature of modern society. If you try to do some good for one person, there will always be some hairy ass bastard who will try to exploit that. And I always use the same example. If I thought that my tax was going to prop up, an unmarried mum or an old boy who's he served his time and he's a bit down on his luck or whatever, I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that. And if I thought that all of the welfare system was allocated in that way, I wouldn't really have a major issue with it. It's when you get I'm sure it's only a matter of time before somebody mentions migrants coming over here and claiming. But we've got people in this country that do exactly the same. They got their big high def TV hanging on the wall, and they don't do a day's bloody work. I'm less comfortable with that. But by comparison, as I say, the benefit scroungers, to my mind, are absolute amateurs compared to the leeches that basically extract every last pound, shilling, and penny out of working men and women. And interestingly, I saw a quote on, I think it may have been on Substack today, talking about the rise and rise of AI. As I say, I don't think AI is going to impact you guys particularly. It will influence, but I don't think it will impact. But all that being said, one of the things that people seem to have ignored is an AI. In some instances, an AI may be able to replace a worker. If you're in the manufacturing industry and you can get rid of a person and replace it with an AI, you've just saved yourself an absolute fortune. But that's one less person that will be able to buy the product you're actually making. Has anyone thought of that? And what about the wider implications on tax? Let's just, for example, as I say, I don't do math. I want to work in round figures, but let's just say next year we take 500,000 people, 500,000 people out of the employment force and replace them all with AI. What are we going to do to replace their tax contributions, their national insurance contributions, the amount of money that they spend at their local supermarket, the amount of money they spend at their local hairdressers, clothing shop? Has anyone thought of that? There you are. That's where the industry and the world and society has us over a barrel. Basically, unless you're willing to pay, you don't work. That I've said this before. I don't know what the specific definition of slavery is, but if you have to pay to work, you must be very, very close. I mean, I obviously I pay when I'm paid, but I don't have to pay. Well, obviously, I don't have to pay to get to work, so I only walk down the stairs, but I don't have to pay for that. I don't have to pay for the clothing, but I also don't have to pay for a bit of plastic that I can wave at somebody and say, yeah, I know I do it every day, but just to prove I can do it every day, here's a piece of plastic. I don't have to do that. I don't have to pay for specific clothing. None of that. Most diggers, a wage slave, as we say. Yeah, absolutely right. Hang on a minute, that didn't work, that one. I don't feel at all exploited. As an industry, we're all well paid, and the working conditions are as good as they've ever been. Everybody has to eat and drink. It's up to each person to find the best way. All true, but as I say, I mean, things like, I mean, I don't know if Danny's going by train these days. I know he was for a while. Our trains are more expensive than anywhere else in Europe. Now, should trains be expensive? To my mind, they should not. I was watching a video yesterday where two guys had basically flown. Where did they fly to? I think they flew to Bratislava for about 50 quid each. But they did a bit of a tour of Europe and they came back via the Eurostar. So they flew all the way to Bratislava, which is about a 2.5 hour flight off the top of my head, for 40 quid. But to get a train from Calais to London, which is about 70 miles, was 350 quid. Our transport is phenomenally expensive, which I have a gripe with anyway. But if you are using that transport purely to get to work, now bearing in mind, you as a private individual will be paying tax upon your income. The people that you are working for have sold their services to build something, demolish something, or whatever, so they will be paying tax on the money that they've earned as well. Assuming somebody's building something, let's say they're building a bunch of houses, they will sell those houses. They will be taxed on the profits. The people living in those houses will be taxed on their capital gains when they come to sell it. So there's tax stacked upon one upon another. And yet, in order for you to go to work, in order to pay tax ultimately, you have to pay through the nose with some of the most expensive public transport in the entire world. It doesn't sit well. I'd only work away if I cleared more than being local after the extra out-of-town expenses. Sensible. Sensible. Dan says payment contractors charge up to £25 a week to pay you, and Hudson contractors have made $1 billion in profit this year. Yeah. The umbrella companies, and again, it just feels like mugged off. In order for you to appear self-employed, you often work through an umbrella company. And that umbrella company is not there for altruistic reasons. They're not there for the good of their health. They're not there just to put their arm around your shoulder and say, don't worry about your tax and your insurance. We'll take care of that. You just crack on. No, they're taking a slice. And they're not taking a slice from your employer. They're taking a slice from you. It's when you see your tax deductions per week and your wage packet, and then you realise, or you hear these big companies actively sourcing ways to tax avoid. Yeah. Absolutely. Dan says, this is why we're only a number. My tax is never the same week on week. We're all just cash cows for the government. Yeah. And it's not peculiar to the current government. It's every government we've ever had. But seriously, at the point where you are effectively paying for the privilege of going to work, have we taken a wrong turn? Well, Jim, there are scrupulous companies out there that look for the cheapest labour for these jobs. Yeah. And public transport is very unreliable too. And there's another factor that not necessarily, well, not directly a cost, but indirectly. You're taking public transport. You're already paying through the nose for it. The train's late, the bus is late, the bus breaks down, whatever it might be. You get to work late. You've lost more money. So you've already paid over the odds to get there. You have arrived late. You might even be turned away at the gate. You get there and say, sorry, I'm an hour late, but train broke down. Oh, we don't need you. Piss off. So you basically paid your train fare through the nose for nothing. And you've had your wages deducted. Plenty of migrants come here to claim money because they can. I don't blame them for doing it. I blame the government for allowing it. Listen, I don't have the economic figures in front of me, but my guess would be that we are paying more in benefits, quite a lot more, in fact, in benefits to British nationals than we are to migrants. And again, I will reiterate, there are some people that are thoroughly deserving of that. Without making sweeping generalizations, if you are ex-military, for example, and you're claiming benefits, fucking good luck to you. Good luck. Help yourself. Knock yourselves out. Crack on, because you've earned it. You more than earned it. If you're an old fella or an old lady that's you've been paying tax all your life and you've fallen on hard times in your later life, fine, absolutely dandy, not a problem at all. If you're a young mum and you've got yourself pregnant, your mum and dad have kicked you out, and you're now trying to raise a sprog on your own, and the system can help you out, yeah, crack on, not a problem at all. The trouble is that there are unscrupulous people out there that will look at that and think, oh, no work and plenty of money. Yeah, that sounds like my cup of tea. Gary says, Dan, you usually find the umbrella company is the same company that pays, just another name. Is that true? I wouldn't be surprised. Peter says, I'm as bad as the buses and trains, late again. Morning, Peter. How are you doing? Where are you at the moment? Are you home? Are you well? Are you fit? I'll be honest, I've been a bit busy this week, and I've kind of lost track. Peter says, umbrella companies are the biggest scam ever. But we as a nation and as a government and as a system, we created that. To prove that you are self-employed, you need to be, you need to jump through some hoops. And as I say about unscrupulous people exploiting a loophole, these umbrella companies went, oh, your average digger driver ain't going to want to mess about with all these tax and national insurance. Yeah, but if we stepped in, we could have a little piece of that. And if we do it for thousands of them or hundreds of thousands of them, we'll make, as Dan rightly said, £1 billion. Jim says, if I took a train to London, it would cost loads. I could go by a bus much cheaper. So why use the train? Everyone should boycott things they don't agree with. I'm much the same. I mean, I'm at the point now. I really used to look forward to train journeys. I always had a bit of an unwritten rule. If I was going to Birmingham, I'd drive it. If I was going beyond Birmingham, I'd take the train. But the train is so expensive now that I've basically burned that off. So I'm due up at in Birmingham for the IDE AGM in November, and I will probably drive. I'm not entirely decided, but I'll probably drive. But I've already looked, and I could take a coach, which I've done before to go to Leeds. Take the coach, probably the night before, because I need to be there fairly early doors. Take the coach the night before, get myself some digs, an Airbnb or something like that, for about a third of the cost of the train journey. That makes no sense, does it? Peter says civilization is at fault, not just the governments. True that. Me and this old guy talked about this. Some of these migrants get their cars just for the rates, and they aren't interested in the job. Okay. Good. I'm home. I'm not fit, but I'm surviving. Good. That's a starting point. We can build on that, Peter. Jim says, take the cash out of the welfare system, and you'll have a society that starts healing. Keep giving away free money, and society will remain in freefall. Hate to say it, but he's right. Yeah. Again, I will reiterate: there are some people that are more than happy to have free money, just not as many as there are. But many are great workers too. Yeah. Gary says that's why these extreme day trips are so popular just now. You can fly to another country, spend the day enjoying the sights, fly back home. Then it's cheaper than a train journey up the country. Yeah. I told you. I looked at going to Scotland. As it turns out, I couldn't make it anyway because of the timing. I think I was out of the country somewhere else. But I looked at taking the train up to Scotland. And to get the train to Scotland was, I'm fairly sure, and we're not talking first class here. I'm not one of those, but we were talking about 330, 340 quid. Last time I flew to New York was less than that. I can fly to Milan, for example, which is one I do fairly regularly. 40 quid. And yet 330 quid to go to Edinburgh. Since COVID, I feel the benefit Britain has gone nuts. It does feel like that. And I've said this before, and I will continue to say it probably until the day I hang up my boots. We missed such a great opportunity for a reset. You think about how we all, even little things like this show, we all kind of got ourselves together. Me, Peter Haddock, Nick Drew came together and did this, and Peter did his live streaming thing and his LinkedIn thing, and Nick Drew did his thing, and we all pulled together. We all united and pulled together. We'd gather on our doorsteps on a Thursday evening to applaud and say thank you to the NHS. It was an opportunity for us to look around and think, You know, I mean, apart from the fact that there's a disease raging out there and it's killing people, you know, this as a society feels better. You know, we're knocking on the door of our next door neighbour, making sure they're okay. And we're just generally being nicer people. And when we were given the go ahead to go back to work, everyone didn't just go back to work; they became even bigger bastards than they were before. That's my take on it. Jim says boycott trains and fares will come down. Use the buses more. Firms will bring in more buses. Then the price of bus travel will also come down. Do you know? I was looking at a thing again on Substack the other day. I wish I could remember. It may have been Cincinnati. There's a train station in Cincinnati, and it is beautiful. I mean, it looks like something out of a Tim Burton movie. It's ornate and it's gorgeous. And back in the day, that train station used to welcome, I think it said 210 trains per day. It was a bit of a hub, 210 trains per day. It now has 6. 6 trains per day for this gorgeous. I mean, you'd go to this train station just to see the station. It's that cool. 6 stations, 6 trains rather. And that, you know, exactly the same here. We've basically priced ourselves, or the train companies have priced themselves out of the market. You know, I mean, there are also things, you know, I look at things now. Is it worth me going? You know, I mean, my trip to Kentucky, you know, we did it largely on a shoestring, and we were being paid to be there. But if those 2 things hadn't stacked up, I wouldn't have done it. And I also wonder about, you know, I mean, Dan lives in Hertfordshire. He's working in Surrey. He's, you know, I mean, fair play to him. He's got a job and he's, you know, he's doing his thing, and I'm sure he's largely enjoying himself. But does that make any sense? Is there not something more suitable for Dan in and around Hertfordshire? Should a Surrey job not go to a Surrey operator? Would that not make more sense? And then, therefore, you reduce their need to travel. Never mind the cost of the travel, you reduce their carbon footprint as well. Are we just not looking at the bigger picture here? You wouldn't bother paying for the high cost of travel if the infrastructure was up to scratch with a new rolling stock and comfortable journey. We're still living in the dark ages. Yeah. Yeah. And technology isn't helping this industry. See, that's where it should be. You know, when you think about all of the systems there are out there, things like you know, your employment apps and your timesheet apps and the GPS on your phone. Would it not be better, as I say, for an allocation of, we have a job in Hertfordshire, we've got an operator in Surrey, but we've also got a job in Surrey and an operator in Hertfordshire. Marry those two together and say, well, rather than sending him from there to there and him from there to there, why don't we leave them where they are and give them the jobs there? Peter McKenna, if he's still with us, you know, I would imagine, I mean, I don't suppose it's completely cured it, but I would imagine modern technology has stopped, or has reduced, should I say, road-going trucks traveling empty. Because, you know, if you're sending a London-based truck up to Glasgow, and there's a load to go from Glasgow to London, the technology, I would like to think, will marry the two together and reduce it. Could we not have the same for people? Dan says, I pay 75 quid a week for taxi, £200 on B&B and £50 on train at the weekend. Straight off your bottom line. And you can still afford to buy hats. Peter is still here. Gary says, at what point did we take our eye off the ball in this country and let the rest of the world take over? Overtake us, rather. I think it's been such such a gradual process that we kind of didn't notice. I notice now, it's a weird thing, this. I've traveled quite a bit. And when, like when I used to go to Germany, as an example, and their trains were brilliant, you'd think, wow, that's the Germans, isn't it? And then I went to Japan, and the trains were fantastic, and you think, wow, that's just the Japanese. But we had a head start on both of those. Furthermore, both of those were bombed into almost non-existence 70 odd years ago. We did the bombing, not Japan, admittedly, but we did the bombing. And whereas the Germans and the Japs bounced back and came back stronger, better, faster, cleaner, and everything else, we just stuck with where we were. And that's just public transport. There's so many aspects of this nation now that I just think we've kind of lost our way. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole Prince Andrew thing. I mean, frankly, I think he's been sketchy way, way beyond, or way before the latest accusations and stuff. But we allowed it, and we allowed it, and we allowed it, and we allowed it. And yes, he has been stripped of the Prince title. Yes, he's going to have to go and find himself somewhere else to live. Do we think he's going to go hungry anytime soon? Do we think he's going to be living like a pauper anytime soon? Do we think that some of our tax pounds won't still be propping him up, keeping him in the manner to which he and his wife and his children have become accustomed? Nah. Not at all. Apparently, no, trucks still do thousands or hundreds of thousands of miles empty, even with technology. I shouldn't just speak before I engage my brain, should I? Trains killed the stagecoach. Planes killed the trains. It's become the norm, and people blindly pay it. Yeah. Like I say, I mean, and this is a crazy example, and I realise it was ramped up for YouTube. But I watched the thing the other day. Two guys and their wives had ordered a pizza, a pretty fancy, or a couple of fancy pizzas, from a local place, and it was costing them 54 quid. And they said we could go to Italy and eat pizza for less than that, and then they did. They flew to Pisa, which is where my son is right now. Flew to Pisa, couple of pizzas, which would have been better because they were Italian, and then they flew back for less. That makes no sense. Dan says, in 4 years, I've not had one day off. If I had no work, but no, if I had no work, but no holidays, Dan, I admire your commitment. Do you know, I used to have this conversation with my dad. My dad once did 5 years, or 5 and a bit years, without a single sick day. That was just the way he was. When my dad retired, he was given a bit of a send off, but nothing major. He wasn't given a gold watch or anything like that. He was given a bit of a send off and stuff. His job was replaced within a day. Does anyone at that company now look back and go, oh yeah, Mark Anthony, senior, what a worker. We were so lucky to have him. Do they bollocks? And listen, I mean, I've had, in the 5 and a bit years I've been doing this, I've had a couple of days off. I mean, I know I get to go away and stuff, but I've had a couple of days off where I've been sick or whatever it might be. Not much. Who am I doing that for? I mean, apart from the fact that I love what I do and getting to hang out with my mates doing this show, but nobody will remember that. When I'm being lowered into the ground, nobody's going to say, "Oh, what a worker! What a worker!" We'll take care of his family for him because he was such a great guy. No, will they balls? So Dan, look after yourself because no other bugger's going to do it. Peter says, road transport is like the farming industry. Instead of the businesses within the industry setting the rates, the consumer sets the rates via the supermarkets. Is that true with farming, though? I mean, I'm only vaguely aware because I watched Clarkson's Farm. But is it the consumer that's setting that, or is that the supermarkets? Are the supermarkets not saying, our customers will not wear more than 4 quid for a chicken, therefore you will sell us your chickens for £2 so we can make 100% profit? Is that not the case? And I guess ultimately, if you play that out, maybe the British public won't pay more than £4 for a chicken. I don't even know how much a chicken is, but you get the idea. What we got here? Peter says, if it was the other way round, drivers wouldn't be paid just above minimum wage and businesses will be profitable and productive. Jim says, tax business miles and things will go back local. That's an idea. That is an idea. Dan says, it's the same as Jimmy Savile. Look at the BBC. They condone it and others, and we pay them. Yeah. Companies charge what the market will suffer, not what it costs to provide the service. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Some train drivers are on 100 grand a year. Is that right? That seems a lot. Sausage Fingers has already said he's going to house him at Sandringham, as that's privately owned. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine how the mighty have fallen, having to live at Sandringham on 5,000 acres of privately owned estate with butlers and chambermaids answering your every need? I mean, I don't know how he's going to get by. I really don't. I mean, my heart bleeds. My heart bleeds for him. I'm sure he's going to. Prince Andrew. I mean, I know he's a regular viewer. Andrew, I know you're not Prince anymore. The Andrew formerly known as Prince. If you need a fiver, mate, give me a call. I mean, the answer will be no, but give me a call. Yeah. Peter says, over the last couple of weeks, I've seen so many similarities between construction demolition industries as with road transport. It's shocking. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I mean, I realise this show is very focused on demolition and construction, but it's not isolated. You know, I would imagine, you know, that there may well be a breakfast show, probably called something different, I would like to think, but there may well be a breakfast show for those in the retail sector, those in the manufacturing sector, those in the offshore sector. I mean, in another sector. I'm sure they are going through precisely the same pains that we are here, which again makes you wonder. You know, if you've got 80 odd million people who are not getting by, is that not time for that 80 million people to go, hang on, hold the fuck on. Don't forget who actually runs this country. And if you don't like it, Mr. Starmer, Sausage Fingers, whoever, we won't go to work. See how you get by then. Yeah. We progress in life for our family and our self-respect. Be nice to have a bit more than that, though, wouldn't it? I mean, yeah. I mean, that's why I go to work is for the family. I'm long past the point of self-respect. I've just accepted the only person that's ever likely to respect me is going to be me. So I've kind of done that. But it's a good point. This man on site says you can't retire if your head's not in that space where you can settle down. And he says he will retire, but getting his mind to differentiate the difference. It's not easy. You're legally will live on. You're on YouTube. You're on your YouTube channel. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine years to come? Somebody searching the dark recesses of the internet, and they come across this. What will people of the future make of this? Peter says, "Would you pay £4 for a bag of carrots?" No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Have you seen any of the? It goes to show how much money they're going to be raking in. You know, you can go to do your shopping at Aldi or Lidl or Tesco's or Asda or Sainsbury's or Waitrose or Marks and Sparks. I was kind of working my way up. And you can do that day in, day out, week in, week out. And yes, the prices are high and, you know, everything's more expensive than they need to be and everything else. But we're in the run up to Christmas now. And they've all started printing these really glossy, sexy brochures and books, you know, the Marks and Spencer's book with all of their goods in it. And you're looking like, I may this may just be a fever dream, but I'm sure there was a turkey in the Marks and Sparks book for 150 quid. Thank you, Gary. It wasn't my imagination. Marks and Sparks turkey crown this year, £160. And it's a turkey crown. You don't even, I don't want them, but you don't even get the bones or the giblets for your gravy. You don't even get that. It's just a turkey crown. £160. Now, there are plenty of people in the UK that will happily go and do that. And, you know, that's what they do. But £160. You know, because my two remaining offspring that are at home come and go as they please. One of them's a vegetarian, one's quite a picky eater. They all go off and do their own thing. So our shopping bill, you know, if I go and do a week's shop, by the time I bought dog food and dishwasher tablets and all the things, yeah, maybe I'm doing 100, 120, 130 quid a week. And yeah, there'll be a few filling bits here and there, maybe a bottle of milk from time to time or some butter or whatever it might be, but by and large, that will last me and my good lady a week or thereabouts. Christmas, 500 quid, 600 quid for a day. Really? Peter McKenna says, early warning, I will be producing a Christmas song. Will you? Did you do a Halloween one? If you didn't, I think you've missed a trick. Oh, blimey, I haven't kept up with the chat at all. But let me just go back here. Jim Turner says, a lot of farmers are on contract, so they agree to what they're going to get. The middlemen, the supermarkets, etc., makes the majority of the profit. Yes, indeed, they do. Oh, excuse me. Dan says, this industry and these developers scrounge every penny to top up their profits. But if people stood up and stood together and do something about it, indeed. While the idiots are still in charge, we're all fucked. And I agree with that 100%. Andy Salton on his way out the door. Got to go, guys. Have a scary Friday and a great weekend. You too, if we haven't missed you already. But yes, Peter McKenna going to be doing a Christmas song. Has anybody heard? I assume we've all heard Peter's musical output. Some of it's really good. Not all to my taste, I grant you. There's a bit of a country twinge to some of Peter's stuff. And the moment I hear sort of country style guitars, I start to sort of disappear into the neck of my shirt. But some of it's really, really good. But the government machine has made it so the majority of people can't afford to strike because the world runs on debt, and it's the debt that makes us controlled. And as I say, we are bread consumers. We are. That's bread, B-R-E-D, not B-R-E-A-D. UK-based Thomas Joseph Butchery is selling herb-fed turkey for £275. I'm going to ask a silly question here. Herb-fed? I mean, I quite like turkey. I'll be the first to admit it. I quite like turkey. But it doesn't taste of much, does it? Are you going to notice the difference with a herb-fed turkey? I'm thinking probably not. Dan, thank God I don't eat turkey. Oh, you're missing out. Particularly cold turkey. Or the cold cuts on a Boxing Day. But looking at that, how much has it cost to feed and rear that turkey? Not £275 would be my guess. Mostly in debt. Those at the top love that we all owe so much. Yes, they do. They do. We are the same, £130 a week. The home delivery used to be 3 or 4 boxes. You're lucky to get 2 for the same money. Yeah. I've told this story before, and it is the passage of time and inflation and stuff. Many moons ago, I bought my wife a car because we had 4 young children at the time. Bought a 7-seater and bought it in Dorking. I know, 10 miles up the road from where I'm sat right now. So took the train up to Dorking, walked into the showroom, showed them the bits and pieces, and they gave me the car. Now, I'd paid whatever it was, 17, 18 grand for this new car at the time. Started it up, and the red light came on to say, you need fuel. So thanks for that. You pay the best part of 20 grand for a car, and they can't even put some bloody petrol in it. But that's an aside. So I literally drove off the forecourt to next door where there was a petrol station, and I filled it to the point where I was pushing fuel in. Filled it right to the brim. Where you fill it up and the nozzle cuts out, but if you leave it for a second or two, you can get a bit more in. I did that, and the bill for that was 66 quid. Okay. Fast forward 4 years, we traded it in, and I took the same journey to get the same car at Dorking. Did exactly the same thing again. I hit 99 quid, and I could still go. That was when I stopped, but at 99 quid, and that was 4 years. That's 4. That's 3. That's 4. 4 years. My fuel bill had gone up by a third. And before anyone asks, it was precisely the same car. They hadn't increased the fuel capacity or anything like that. It was precisely the same car. Dan says, have a fantastic weekend, guys. Stay safe, look after yourself, be happy. I'm not into Halloween. It's American BS. It is, but come on. But bearing in mind, I did actually work on doing this. I am going to get one more play out of it.
Happy Halloween.
Not sure the time was worth it, if I'm honest. Peter, for that money, I hope Turkey shits £10 notes. Yeah. But you'd need to give it laxatives. You'd need to give it 27. Or you'd need 27 proper turkey poos to get your money back. Yeah. Jim says they're only selling these overpriced goods if people are daft enough to buy them. Same as train travel, new phones, cars, list is endless. If you pay it, they'll keep putting the price up. There are certain things, I believe, where it's like the world has you over a barrel. Funerals, for example. If one of your dearly beloved should pop their clogs, the requirement is that you will have a funeral, and to have a funeral, you have a funeral director, and you have a coffin, and you have the car and the hearse and the flowers and everything else, and you will pay through the nose. If you have a baby, you will need a pushchair, a pram, a cot, a Moses basket. It's been a while, but all of these things, and you will pay through the nose for all of those things. And I do genuinely think that Christmas is another one of those. Christmas rolls around, and even when times are hard and you may be struggling financially and everything else, you will bend over backwards to make sure that your children and your missus have a decent Christmas. As I say, bearing in mind I've been put through the ringer financially a couple of times. Even when we were really on our uppers, come Christmas, you do your level best to just go that little bit further. Let's have a look. True, Gary. I was paying £100 a week on Tesco delivery, and man, it was on very skimping on what you got. Dan, enjoy my Halloween vampire. She can be my damsel in distress. Should she pop round, Dan, I'll send her your way. Jim, sorry. You should be keeping turkeys for Christmas to sell for the public. You could make a fortune. Yeah, at 275 quid, you bloody could. Yeah. You just make sure they're herb fed. And what herbs? Do I want my turkey to taste of rosemary or basil or oregano? I'm not sure I do. We've kept turkeys before. They're a swine to neck. Is that what you referred? Do you neck a turkey? Do you? I always think they look. They taste fantastic, but they look awful. I know people go on about who was the first person to eat an egg, who was the first person to drink cow's milk. The one that always gets me is somebody at some point opened up what looks like a rock, an oyster, and said, I'm going to eat that snot. Somebody did that. But of all the animals on God's green earth, somebody looked at a turkey and went, bet that's delicious. It looks horrible. Jim Turner says it's a two-man job. I bet it is. Turkeys are big suckers, aren't they? Have a fantastic weekend, guys, with your family and friends. Yeah, you too, Gary. That will do us. Blimey, hour and 40 minutes. My quick Halloween special has been going for the best part of 2 hours. I can only apologise. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic weekend as well. I'll see you on Monday to bitch and moan about something else. I don't know what that will be, but I'm sure I'll find something. Till then, everybody, have a fantastic day and, happy Halloween.